We're going to be in March pretty soon, and there's a lot of energies going on in March that we are going to talk about. There's going to be a lot of pushing and pulling, and we're going to help you navigate through that. So, welcome back to another one of the Edge of the Sun's Energy Scrubs. I'm Sincere from Sincere Wellness, and there's Maida from the Shared Edge with the gong. And and oh, that's a big one, isn't it?
It's the big one.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Oh wow, I love it. Um, yeah, so we're here talking about March. We're kind of skipping a little bit over February just because we were a little late putting this up. So we're trying to get back on track with starting in the first part of the month. And so we're going to chat about what's going on in March astrologically. Is there anything you want to say, Maida, before we dive right in?
No, I'm good to skip over February because it's one of my least favorite months. So I'm kind of glad we're like moving into the season of spring. So March is a good time. February is hibernation. And now it's time to reawaken.
Yeah, I'm actually, I was telling Maida earlier that I actually start dreading March just because it's moving into warmer weather. And not that I don't like warm weather, period. I just don't like summer. And so my summer angst starts to happen in March. But this time it's a little bit different for me. I don't know. I feel a little bit different about March for some reason. I'm looking forward to the blooming and all that. So, anywho, yeah, lots of stuff going on in March astrologically. I won't take too much time talking about this, but the theme we're going to talk about today is not trying too hard, right? So, originally, Maida and I were going to talk about what was going on with Aries, talking more about, warrior energy, standing up for yourself. But when I looked at the full month, especially when I looked at the circle chart, there's a lot going on with Pisces as well. There's a lot of like aspects and things like that, but I'm not going to get too deep into all that. But when you think about the two energies of Pisces and Aries, it's like they're kind of opposing because you have Aries that's really like, confident, warrior, go gadget, like just going straight forward for everything. And then you have Pisces energy, which is a little bit more thoughtful. There's more intuitiveness there, a little bit more passive, and there's no boundaries as opposed to where Aries tends to want to fight for things. So there's definitely some opposing energies going on. I feel like it's playing itself out in the month of March. Just to give you an idea of what's going on, so we have a Venus retrograde that begins on March 1st. We have Mercury going into Aries, both of which will be going into retrograde at some point, which I'll talk about in a second. We have Aries season obviously beginning, and then we have a new moon eclipse a solar eclipse is happening in Aries as well, which is a big thing. And we have another big thing which is happening, which is Neptune entering into Aries, which is it's like the first time this happened in many, many, many years, and it's going to be there for 13 years. So we have a lot of movement going into Aries. And what I'm seeing with this sort of juxtaposition of things moving from Pisces to Aries is this energy of um, but thinking before or feeling before you make a move. So it's like this whole energy of not trying too hard. It's like, again, like we have these retrogrades happening, and when retrogrades happen, it's a time to reflect. We have the solar eclipse happening, which is also a time to reflect. And we're also in the year of the snake, which I feel is interesting to me because in Chinese astrology, the snake represents not only new regeneration and rebirths and new beginnings, which so does Aries, okay? Because you're kind of going through a regeneration. It's like the cycle of the zodiac cycles ending with Pisces and moving into the newness of Aries, which is the energetic new year. So, but also snakes know when to strike. Like snakes have a certain, like they don't just willy-nilly strike at people, they kind of wait till the right moment to strike. And I think that's what we're being told. And one of the ways to operate right now, especially in this tumultuous time, is you know being very mindful or heartfelt about what actions you're taking, and not even just as a collective as a whole, but also in our personal lives. I mean, with Venus being in Pisces, for example, this could be a moment where you need to reflect on your relationships or the things that you love in life, or maybe you need to stand up for what you care about in life. What makes you light yourself up, or what lights you up, I should say. So there's a lot of ways to interpret this, and I'll give an example of what I mean. Another way, I should say, is I've been in a situation where I feel like I'm not having a lot of control. And the lack of control is causing me to kind of spaz out a little bit because it's like, oh my God, it's like I need to do shadow work and I need to do another class and I need to do da da da. Like I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And I think my guys are telling me that you need to sort of fall back and just like the reason why you don't have control is because that's the lesson you're supposed to learn in this life, I mean, this particular time in life is to let go of the control and surrender and just listen to the guys, which is very Pisces energy, and just being more in a Taoist mindset, if you will. It's like that whole just allowing yourself to flow in the moment as opposed to resisting and holding on to something. It reminds me of the Four of Pentacles in a tarot, which is the guy holding on to the pentacle so tight. It's like just releasing it and letting it go. And that's the great paradox of things is like when you stop trying so hard, it's like then that's when stuff starts to come to you. So that's where we're leading with that. I feel like I said a lot because there's a lot of stuff going on in March. Like I said, I didn't even really scratch the surface of it. But the whole idea of our show today, or our what do you call? I don't even know what you call our thing here. Just our scrub. I was gonna say a podcast, but I was like, it's not even really a podcast. It's just a scrub. So the whole point of it today is to learn how to, when is it time to fall back? When is it time to take action? Learning how to, exist in between these two places and just not feeling like you have to do all the time and not try so hard. And Maida, would you like to jump in? I know you're doing some Zen studying right now, so you might have some interesting insights.
I don't know. I mean, resistance is such an interesting thing, and the desire for control is like all of these things are so human, right? And like we like to feel like we're in control, but I think ultimately we know that we're not at some degree, and that makes us even more anxious. But if we can kind of really relax our grip around how we think things should go or they need to go or whatever timeline. I think that's another thing too. It's like we have oh well, this needs to happen in this time. And then it's like we're just so resistant to life, like in its own time. And then I think when we're just like, oh, everything is happening, like it's happening. Spring is gonna come, like as much as I'm like, oh, winter, you're never gonna go. It's like, yes, it's going to pass, And so it's just like, it's just constantly that reminder of just, we don't have a lot of control in a lot of the things in our lives. And so how can we actually find places that we are in control, or at least not even in control, but just in relationship to, in a really beneficial way. I think that's sort of where my practice is a lot of these days of just, it's like that serenity prayer, right? God give me the strength to, I don't know it by heart, but it's that idea of just like, what can I change? What do I have control over changing? What can I not change? And how can I accept that, which I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I think that's sort of what the meditation will be about. I think that's what a lot of what you're discussing is going to be about. It's just, and it's hard to know, right? Especially now because it is so noisy. There's so much information and misinformation and opinions and like calls to action. You're like, okay, I can do anything. And like you get lost. You get lost in it all, and then you get exhausted. And then and we don't really give ourselves that sort of nourishing time to just be in silence or listen to what is really guiding us forward. So I think that's a really necessary part of our practice, just to push it together a little bit so we can do the things that we need to do.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, following your own intuition through all of it. You know what I mean? And just not feeling like you have to do what everybody else is doing. It's just, yeah, I mean, knowing what was that thing you just said, and the last part I totally remember too. It was about the things you give you the strength to change the things you cannot change or whatever it is. Yeah, it's like really just, I don't know, there's a lot to be to want to change right now. There really is, and I get that. But it's like there's a time for action and then there's a time to sort of fall back, and it's just have deliberate action, I guess, is where I'm going with it.
And you like your analogy of the snake, right? Like they're only striking when they know that, when they have the energy, when they have the resources to be able to do it. Like there might be times when, snake is like, yeah, now is not the time. maybe I'm not hungry and I don't need to strike, right? Like, so it is very kind of, it's taking in everything that you need, everything that you can give, so that you can, when you do act, it is very, like you said, deliberate and coming from a place of wisdom and discernment than just like out of a reaction. I think that's it too, of just like acting with thought and compassion versus just reacting. Um,
Yep.
yeah, because we can get really caught up in just like the need to react. And yeah, so it's difficult, and especially where there is so much external noise that you can't even hear your own intuition.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
so that's what we're gonna try and practice today. We'll do a little bit of a sound meditation to kind of just wander in that space together, right? Of like, where are we resisting life in whatever ways that it shows up for us? Where are we perhaps not taking action in deliberate ways? And just really just starting to examine ourselves, and hopefully we can examine ourselves and be with ourselves in a place of compassion, so that our actions then come from that place as well. So that's what the meditation is going to be about, sort of just like starting to become a little bit more present to the different forces of the fire of Aries and the water of Pisces, and the elements that sometimes seem at odds, but in actuality we need both, and all the other elements as well, but just for the sake of the astrology for fire and water, we need both to really to live a full human life. So that's what we're gonna do. Sound good?
Right on.
All right, cool. All right, so get yourself into a comfortable position while I'm playing the sound and kind of guiding you through the meditation. Sincere will be sending out some distance Reiki, and then afterwards she'll share what came up for her. And then we're always welcome. I know it's, YouTube, and so it's less engaging, but we always are welcome to any comments or questions that you might have that come out of it. Both the sound and the Reiki are existing separate from time and space. And so whenever you're listening to it, it will have the vibrations that it needs for you at that moment. So, okay. Sorry, we had a lot to talk about today. Plus, we haven't talked in a while, Sincere and I, so then we have even extra to talk about. So.
It's a big month, and like you said, it's been a while for us, so we're just full of things to say today.
So thanks for listening. You can always do this in 2 parts if you need to. Yeah. Okay. So once you have found a comfortable seat, I do recommend headphones or high quality speakers so that the sound does transmit as well as it can be over these channels. But either way, the vibrations will move towards you and through you the way they need to. And so once you've settled into your spot, you can let your eyes close. And breathe. The breath is such a useful tool in so many practices because it really does symbolize these opposing forces, the inhalation and the exhalation that are both necessary. One can't exist without the other. Even if you'd like, for the next few breaths, you might breathe in a feeling of greater wisdom. As I breathe in my connection to my deepest wisdom and intuition. And with the exhale, you breathe out any resistance to that. We are very conditioned to resistance, to having things a certain way, to wanting things, of course, right, to go in the ways that we want. And part of life is really navigating what we have control over and what we don't, and how to really move through those areas that we don't with as much grace and kindness as we can to ourselves and to others. And as we start to move through the sound, notice how you feel the sound in the body. Does a certain sound create a holding or a tension, a resistance or an anticipation? Does it bring up certain judgments or requirements, as one of my teacher calls them? And how are we resisting the sound? Can we be present to that resistance? Find the space and the silence around it. So that we can begin to notice how that too is shifting. That even the energy of fire has a flow, a liquidity to it. And perhaps if there is something that you're struggling with at this moment, a source of unease or tension or suffering, allow yourself to meet it, however you resist it. And meeting it through the feeling of it in your body. just as we did with the sound of the gong, with the sound of these shells received by the body. And that watery nature of the sound. Does that create a sense of clearing, calm, release? Come on. And if you are working with a particular source of struggle or tension before, find yourself back to it. Maybe it's shifted since you first brought it in. Maybe not. Just feeling the nature of tension itself. How it too fires up and relaxes, ebbs and flows. And behind it is a quiet and a stillness. A deeper knowing. There's this beautiful quote by an Indian mystic of, I think he was the 19th century, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, that said, "Love says I am everything, wisdom says I am nothing. Between the two, my life flows." When we can really start to come into the deepest contact with ourselves, beyond the fluctuations of desire and motivation, action, there is this quiet knowing that silently guides us. And when we can drop into it, we can find the fuel and the energy and the wisdom to move forward in the ways that we need to. Allow yourself as much time as you need to really rest in the silence and the stillness. You might even linger in that moment between the breath, between the inhale or the exhale, where there's just that little pause. In that moment, you can always choose to begin again. Connect to the deepest source of wisdom and knowing that you can act. And whenever you're ready, you can gently start to move, stretch, and come back whenever you're ready.
That was so different. And I didn't even notice that you didn't have the bowls. Not till, you played, and I was like, oh shoot, this is different. But I like it. I thought it was a great juxtaposition between the fire and the water.
Yeah, I mean, these instruments always make me feel like even just the way the gong looks, it looks like a sun, like it has that sort of really powerful quality and fiery energy, at least for me. And maybe no, other people might not feel that way, but for me, it always sort of represents like that fiery energy. And then of course these just
Mhm.
Water. Yeah,
Oh, no, for me too, definitely.
good.
As a matter of fact, well, I'll start with the gong, as far as what I saw. Um, because I didn't think about this until you, did the quote, until you said the quote, and I was like, "Wow." So when you were playing, it was almost like I could feel my breathing was going in and out, because, the sound of the gong sort of goes in and out like that, and I felt my breathing was in sync with that, which was interesting, and then I started to think about how that's somewhat reflective, I would say, of the Pisces Aries energy of like active, passive, active. You know what I mean? It just, I was like, oh, that's so interesting that that was the instrument that was chosen. And mind you, she had that instrument before we decided to switch over to the Pisces Aries energy. So I thought it was just perfect. Um, so yeah, what came up?
Actually, too, for a second, like it's just so interesting that you said that because even like the motion, right, of like striking a gong, where it's like an active motion, and then the sound reverberates, which is like sort of that passive reflection of it or refraction of it. I just needed to share that because I was like, ooh, that's so cool.
No, I love that. I love how it just all comes together, which of course, which is a total example of what we mean. We weren't even trying to make this work. We didn't think too much about it, and it just worked out perfectly. Exhibit A. So, yeah, I saw a brick wall at first, which I think makes a lot of sense because it's about the resistance. And then I kind of sort of looked over the wall, and it was funny because it looked like there was like this beautiful, colorful meadow. And then on the other side, when I looked, because I didn't really look at it at first, it was sort of like gray and city. And then at some later point, I saw rubble. So it was almost like a war-torn area, and then right over that is the, I don't wanna say paradise, but it's just like a, obviously a more serene situation, and it just made me wonder and think if we, like, are we choosing that? Do you mean, like, where is our consciousness? Is it on the war? Is it on the peace? Is it on um again, the going back to the duality of Pisces and Aries energy. And speaking of that, I'm kind of going all over the place just to go in sort of like an order here, because I saw Malcolm X, and first I saw Martin Luther King, and then I saw Malcolm X. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And even though towards the end of their lives, they were a little bit more in agreement with each other, they were portrayed in the media as if one was about, nonviolence and one was about violence, And again, there's that juxtaposition of one being someone who is for um, a more peaceful resolution of things, and the other one's like by any means necessary. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see those two.
It's so interesting that you brought that up because I'm reading a book right now where she's talking about both of them as like that, right, exact example of just like nonviolence versus more active means or any means necessary. So it's just
Mhm.
interesting that you brought that up because I literally was reading that this morning.
What's the book?
It's a book called Casting Indra's Net by Pamela Ayo Yatunde. It's really, really good because a lot of it is about this, right? I mean, she comes from a Buddhist perspective, but also just because there is that dichotomy in Buddhism a lot of times, like it is so passive and like, okay, well, I'm just going to meditate. And she's like, no, like there's a whole thing about right action, right effort. Like there has to be a movement to be able to change. So it's cool because she talks about it in like spirituality, but in community and in a kinfolk, and it's really cool. So it's just funny that yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I don't think I said that we in the intro, as far as there needs to be action. I mean, there's okay to be passive, but you do need action in order to move. There needs to be movement.
Right.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. And then I saw a big wave, like a really big wave, like splashing up against, I don't know if it was the wall or just in general. I saw a big, wave. And then I saw a stork, which of course is an indication of new beginnings, new birth. I saw a gargoyle, which confuses me. I really don't know what that gargoyle was about. I mean, I guess I have to look it up. And again, we always ask if anybody has anything they would like to, you know, uh, share, or it means anything to you, feel free to share it with us. But yeah, because I know gargoyles were initially there for protection. So I don't know if it's an issue of asking for protection or something, or I don't. And it's funny because that's a usually when you think of protection, you think of angels and almost like pretty things. You know what I mean? Like, strong beings or whatever. And you don't really think of these ugly gargoyles. So it's kind of interesting that maybe sometimes things need to get ugly. I don't know.
Or
Uh,
also, like, if you think about it in terms of, I mean, just when even you're saying like your shadow work, like sometimes the ugly parts of ourselves are the things that need to be met, and they are those parts that are guiding us. I mean, they guide us either subconsciously or consciously, but sometimes they do need to be kind of met and accepted so that we can heal, right? So it is kind of interesting that you saw gargoyles and that you mentioned that.
yeah, no, see, yeah, that makes sense. And then I mentioned the rubble. I also saw the snake again, but this time the snake was coming out of its skin. It was shedding its skin. I thought that was interesting. And also, by the way, I mentioned last time we're in a 9 year, which is a year of where things are coming to a close in a way. And it's interesting that it reminded me of the snake because I feel like we're shedding. We haven't exactly shedded yet, but the skin is being shed. So it's like it's almost like almost there.
Mm.
Um, And then I heard the word simplify, and I think this was definitely a directive as far as how we navigate these waters here and these fires is by simplifying things. I also not simultaneously, but spontaneously went into Breath of Fire just now, and I got clear that it was about purifying. And then I also thought about the violet flame of transmutation. So I encourage folks to find meditations on the violet flame, which is to help us transmute any um, I don't like to say negative, but just any energies that may be holding us back, anything that's heavy that you'd like to transform into something positive. And then I saw a bale of hay and a cow eating the hay. I don't know. I think cows have something to do with mothers. I don't know if there was like a mother energy going on there. I also saw a turtle, which made me think of ancestors. It made me think of also like slowness, deliberate movement again, no rush for things. And then I saw a falcon, and it made me think of the sun god Ra, um, which kind of reminds me of that gong too, by the way, because I think he also had a sun on top of his head. And yeah, and then other Egyptian stuff started to come up, and then that's when we were ending it. So I feel like there's some being able to draw from the Egyptian wisdom, ancient Egypt, I think, is where we're being guided towards. So a little bit of a hodgepodge of stuff, but I think most of it, 90 something percent of it, I think was very relevant. Yeah. So well, no, I mean, it's like, I feel like people need to really start listening to their own guidance. And I've been getting that a lot as far as like following your intuition, following your intuition. And I really don't like hearing that or saying that when I'm doing readings on people because it sounds like such a cop out. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, tarot reading, what should I do? Follow your intuition. It's like, okay, but that's why I came to you. So, but I think there's something being said. I think we're being guided towards that as far as learning how to be our own gurus,
Mhm.
how to not listen to what we think we're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I think that kind of puts us to bring it back home because I feel like we're sort of all over the place um, about trying too hard. It's like if you're doing something that you think you're supposed to be doing, or you're doing something that other people have guided you towards doing, if it's not really in alignment with who you are, then is it really something you're supposed to be doing? And so, really listening to your that inner guide.
But I mean, even in terms of when we're trying to like ease our own like suffering or like what am I supposed to do, right? And it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll do the shadow work like you were saying, or I'm gonna like look at this like this teacher online or that, and it's like sometimes it's also that where it's like just the desperate search for somebody who's going to be able to tell me what I need to do, or like the tarot reading or astrology. It's like we all want those things because we want to kind of confirm that we're where we need to go, or we need some sort of direction. When it is kind of like, just stop and listen. But it's like we're so taught not to, right? We're so taught, and that's kind of interesting that you brought up the ancient Egyptian, because so much of theirs was kind of tuning into the elements and nature and for guidance. And because we're so disconnected from our ways of intuition, it's like to get to even come to that place is like, I don't even know. And so we don't trust it. And so just trying to like have that relationship beyond all the external searches, to just start to trust your internal guidance is really hard, and it's quite a practice. And it's so kind of counterintuitive to here we are trying to be like, here, let's help guide you. So it's like, and of course we need each other. We need each other to sort of point ourselves back to ourselves. But yeah, but that also can get caught up into a whole sort of like spiritual frenzy. So, yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know, I feel like we're just giving knowledge. I think it's fine to, like you said, it has to resonate. I think that's part of the intuition. It's like, it's okay to, like you said, seek out that information. But if it's not resonating with you, like I was reading on Reddit, somebody said something about not trusting Eckhart Tolle. Like Eckhart Tolle just never, there's something about that guy. And I actually responded. I hardly ever respond, but I just felt the need to respond. And I was like, well, I don't really get that from him as far as him being somebody like, I don't know. I don't think he's somebody who's trying to look for fame and fortune. I think he's somebody who has fame and fortune found him because he was just sharing his information. I said, but I think that what you're feeling is speaking to the intuition. I think there's a shift going on right now where folks are not trusting some of the folks who are giving some of this information, because you're supposed to be going towards yourself, as you're supposed to be going inward as opposed to outward.
Right.
um
And I mean, a lot of these spiritual teachers do say the same thing, right? Like, we're all kind of teaching the same thing. Everyone's teaching, and like, but that's the thing. Like, sometimes you just need a certain voice, a certain like that resonates, and then that does open you up to that person. So maybe for some person it is Eckhart Tolle, for some it might be Buddha, for some it might be Jesus and his teachings. Like they're all kind of at the end of it all saying the same thing, and it's just how we resonate.
Mhm.
That it does sort of like, oh yeah, that's where I feel it, but then we have to kind of go in to feel it really, as opposed to just getting stuck in the teachings of somebody else.
Mhm. Exactamundo.
Yeah.
Well,
We could
y'all.
go on, but we won't. I said we could go on because we can talk forever about this stuff.
No, we're kind of having an inside conversation outside. So it's like you guys are eavesdropping on our normal type of conversation. But yeah, so if there's anything you'd like to share with us, feel free to say it, put it in the comments. Feel free to subscribe. We're doing these on a monthly basis for now. And if you want to find out more information about us, just go to thesharededge.com or sunseaair.com, sunseaair.com. And yeah, just like the video, subscribe, share it, do all the things.
Do all the things. See you next month, hopefully.